Hello, I'm Stephan Schwartz, and it's my pleasure to welcome you to the Schwartz Report. This week, as I've been listening to the Democratic Convention, having listened to the Republican Convention, I'm struck by what isn't being discussed. I'm happy to see that the Democrats are talking about going forward instead of going backwards. But there is an issue of consciousness. You hear me almost every week talk about the fact that fostering well-being at every level is the best path forward. And I want to show you some facts about this. Why I say this, it's not that I have political partisanship, some philosophy, theoretical. As you should know by now, if you listen to Schwartz Report, I am entirely about objectively verifiable facts. That's what I care about. That's how I make choices. So this week, I want to talk about what would America be like if well-being were our first priority. Now, before I get started, I heard a Republican politician say that universal health care was a communist idea. I couldn't believe how stupid that was, how ignorant. And then as I talked to people, I realized that most people have no idea what communism is about. So let me just touch on that so we can put that aside. First of all, in terms of the communism that Karl Marx and Friedrich Engels created, the idea they created, the Communist Manifesto was their book in the middle of the 19th century. Communism, as they conceived it, is a political and economic ideology that positions itself in opposition to liberal democracy and capitalism. It advocates instead a classless society in which the means of production are owned communally and private property is non-existent or severely curtailed. Now think about that for a second. The first thing you should think or should realize is that there is no communist country in the world today. Russia's not a communist country. It's not owned communally. Private property is non-existent, and it's a classless society. Quite the contrary. Vladimir Putin is not a classless person he lives in $1 billion house, maybe the most expensive house in the world. The oligarchs who control Russia don't see themselves as classless people. China is not classless. It is not communally owned. China, in fact, has recreated the Mandarin system. China was controlled by the Mandarins, who were an educated group of bureaucrats. Stress on education. And what they've done is recreate the Mandarin system. They're not classless either. And it's not everything is communally owned and private property is non-existent. North Korea is not a communist country. Kim Il-jung certainly does not see himself as the equivalent of the multitude of the population. These are all authoritarian governments. So get clear about this. When you hear politicians talk about communism, you know that you are listening to someone who has no idea what he's talking about, is completely ignorant of the truth. So let's put all of that aside. When I talk about fostering well-being and why I think that is so important, it has nothing to do with the nonsense of communism. It is about just fostering well-being. And it's hard for people just to take that aboard. So let me look at and give you some examples of what the United States could be, not theoretically, not in some impossible way, but I want to show you what other countries are doing, because we can certainly do the same. And let's just start with healthcare. Look at this slide. Look at this list of countries. We're at the absolute bottom. We have the most expensive health care in the world, and I mean by orders of magnitude, and yet we rank at the bottom. Why is that? And the answer is because our healthcare system is not about well-being. It's about profit. It's about corporations and individuals making profit. So if we want to foster well-being, maybe we could create a healthcare that was as good as Australia or Austria or Bahrain or Belgium or Brunei or Canada, Cyprus, Denmark, Finland, France, Germany. Look at the list. We are way at the bottom. It doesn't have to be that way. It requires restructuring healthcare so that we have universal, birthright, single-payer healthcare instead of a system that has only one priority, and that is profit. Now let's look once you're actually a person born. How much governments spend on child care for toddlers? And look at this slide. Once again, we're at the absolute bottom. So if we're going to foster well-being, how is it possible to do that when we pay less to help newly born Americans to prosper? If you're not willing to put something in at the beginning, how can you expect people to turn into educated, well-being oriented individuals? Let me go on. Okay, we are terrible at childcare, and we're worst in the world about healthcare, worst in the developed world. What about education? So now we've got little people. We want them to be well educated. That was why the public education system was created, which the Republican Party, I'm sorry to say, is trying to dismantle Indeed, in their Project 2025, they want to eliminate the Department of Education. So look at this. Global education ranking. Well, the highest ranked public education system in the world right now is in Shanghai, China. Singapore is second. Hong Kong is third. Is it any wonder that the Chinese are cleaning our clock in a number of technologies? They're putting energy into education. The Taiwanese, same thing. The South Koreans, same thing. Finland, United Kingdom. We're down in 36th place in terms of educating our people. How are we going to make a vibrant, functioning democracy when people are too ignorant to understand? 54% can't read past 6th grade level. 43% can't read past 5th grade level. They can't do the math. Look at this. Look at this. Look at the scoring, mathematical score, reading score, science score. We're way down at the bottom when we should be up at the top, and were for quite a long time. Franklin Roosevelt's programs, what was done after the Second World War with the GI Bill for education and the GI Bill to let people buy housing. That's what created the middle class. That's why we did become the leaders. We recognized that fostering well-being made a difference. And it was a priority. But it's not anymore. It starts with the Reagan administration and the restructuring of the tax system. And Citizens United, which is a Supreme Court decision which legalized bribery of politicians. So we ended up with this horrible wealth inequality. The original idea back in the late 40s and 50s was that the CEO ought to make about 12 times what the average worker made. In fact, right now they're making about 268 times what the average worker is doing. We're not focusing on producing well-being. Now, okay, we don't educate very well at the public school level. We're banning books. We're trying to create indoctrination instead of public education. All kinds of nonsense going on in our school system. How about college? College is preposterously expensive. I was talking to my primary care physician not long ago, and he told me he still owed $200,000. It's like another mortgage. Other countries can manage this. Look at this. Germany, Finland, Denmark, Sweden, Slovenia, Poland, Egypt, Panama, Norway, Czech Republic, France. Look at all these countries. You go to college for free because those countries realize that an educated population is critical to a successful society. Whereas in the United States, it's a point of bankruptcy. It's put hundreds of thousands of people under enormous economic stress because they're so expensive. How is it that a country like Slovenia or Sweden or Italy can afford to have free colleges and we can't? Once again, it's a choice. It's a choice about putting profit ahead of fostering well-being. So, okay, that's the young people, college. How about what are the good countries to retire in with good elder care, where you can live a comfortable, decent life as an older person? And look at this chart. And once again, we're way down at the bottom. It's the same countries, Norway, Sweden, Iceland, Finland. Do you notice something about these patterns? The leading countries in well-being occur again and again in these different evaluations, these rankings. We always lie to ourselves by telling ourselves we're the best, we're the first, we're the whatever. It isn't true. We're not the best. We're not the first. We're often the last or at the bottom. And why? Because we don't make well-being our first priority. Now we're coming up on an election, and you get to choose. I'm not saying that either party is perfect. I'm not saying any politician currently running is perfect. But what I am saying is, when you listen to Kamala Harris and Tim Walz, and you look at that and compare what they're saying to Project 2025, which is what the Republicans are proposing, you can see very clearly that if we're going to have any kind of future that's comfortable, that's desirable, that fosters well-being, we have to vote for the Democrats. Not because they're perfect, because they aren't, but because of the two choices, and it's a two-party system. So it's one or the other. It's very clear on the basis of objectively measurable facts that the Democratic Party is the only choice which is going to get us to fostering well-being. They have a lot to do. We're going to have to lean and vote and make our voices heard very strongly when Harris wins. But that is the only way we're going to get to fostering well-being and become a country which is once again a leader in the world. Think about that, and thank you.